Second reason why you'd be bound for a top 20 college, you have tangible community impact. If you've been watching my videos, then you know that I go over this ad nauseum because it's probably the one pain point that I notice students tend to flop on. And it's because people usually equate tangible community impact with just showing a bunch of numbers or claiming that you started a nonprofit organization. Simply put, don't do that. Starting a nonprofit organization, first of all, doesn't show a lot of critical thinking. You're better off making it a school club, and you can watch my previous videos if you want the full breakdown why I'm not a big fan of, the whole nonprofit organization thing. But if you want to show tangible community impact, the recipe is as simple as this. Find a specific group of people with a specific problem and create a specific solution in order to help them with that, whatever they need. I use the word specific a lot, but that's intentional because you need to show a depth of understanding for what it is you're trying to solve. Vague answers and vague solutions are not the recipe here. So for a bad example, suppose you just volunteer at the library. You've gotten enough to get a Presidential Service Award, but you just kind of clock in, clock out, or you may be a part of the National Honor Society or some other volunteering club at your school, and you just do that casually, going from event to event, never developing any kind of real depth in one activity. The way that this is interpreted in the admissions office is honestly pretty poor because it shows that you never really attached onto a cause. There was nothing that excited you or electrified you enough to go and find out a solution for that. You're not a critical thinker, you're not a problem solver, you're just a participant, someone who shows up. If this sounds like you, don't worry because you can find any of the volunteering activities you're currently doing and see what you can do to be the specific person to solve that problem. So going back to the volunteering at the library example, it's probably one of the more common ones that students do out there, right? Because, everyone's got a library near them and, they always need volunteers. So suppose you're doing that and you notice that, the library just simply is not accessible to the visually impaired. It's even better if you have a personal connection with this issue. Like, for example, say you have a grandparent who's visually impaired. Now, all of a sudden, you can start thinking of clever ways to help solve this issue. You found a specific group of people with a specific problem, and again, you're going to be that specific person to solve it. Maybe this is where you can take initiative. So you take some of the 500 most requested books by the visually impaired and you start to transcribe them in Braille. You learn the process of actually doing Braille typescript and actually creating them with, of course, permission from the library. Now, all of a sudden, you don't just have a passion project. You don't just have community service. You have a tangible community impact. This kind of action resonates very highly in top 20 admissions offices because it kind of begs the question, like, who thinks of this, right? That's such a strange and peculiar thing to do, but you found an issue, you solved it, you've shown yourself to be a critical thinker and a problem solver.